Tonight, when an oil well burns out of control, MacGyver's brains and bravery are needed to help stop the fire and save his friends' fortunes. Can Sam, Mike, and Jeff survive perhaps the longest slow-mo scream in television history? Find out next on Making Fun of MacGyver. It's Making Fun of MacGyver, a rib-tickling takedown of our favorite 80s adventure show, Magnum P.I. No, it's MacGyver. Starring Sam Jordan as the skeptic, Mike Garland as the diehard, and Jeff Hess as the scientist.
Name's MacGyver.
Welcome, everybody. I hope all your creaky storage sheds are TNT free. I'm Sam Jordan, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by my two fellow MacGyverites, the Charlie to my Trumbo, Mike Garland.
That's TNT. We're dynamite.
And the Steubens to my Marlowe, Jeff Hess.
Wow, actually, I really like that introduction. I would love to be the Steubens to your Marlowe.
But who shoots who here?
I can't remember. But we've gotten our Steubens and Marlowe reference out of the way.
We got that out of the way. That's good.
There you go.
Good job. To get that out of the way. But in all seriousness, serious question time. Let me ask you two surprisingly attractive men a thought-provoking question. Are you ready to burn, baby, burn?
Disco Inferno. Hell yeah.
Good, because we're moments away from Making Fun of MacGyver, Season 1, Episode 8, Hellfire. And already we're on our way to at least a PG-13. All the times we're going to say Hellfire in this episode. But first, our opening gambit. Let's start with some podcast stats. I'm going to give you the stats a different way this time. I'll tell you our 3 top most downloaded episodes. Maybe we'll keep going back to that, although it might not change, and then we'll stop that. But so our most, no, let me go work from 3 up. Coming in third place, Thief of Budapest with 45 downloads. Number 2, The Heist with 52 downloads. And you know it, you love it. Your favorite episode where we did not even talk about one episode of MacGyver, Getting to Know You at 65. The first episode that people tuned in and said, yeah, you know what? Nah, I'm good with that. 65 downloads for that one. So
we definitely peaked early. People tuned in to get to know us. They felt like they did enough to essentially not tune back in.
I know these guys, and I don't like these guys. So let's see what else is out there, is what at least 60 people said. Some bad news on the sponsorship front. You recall last episode, we had a new Facebook follower. We were all excited. Soon Parts. Well, they left pretty soon. Apparently they're a construction machinery parts supplier out of China. Somehow they're one of the 6 people that follow us on Facebook. Well, we lost them already. We're gone. We're down to 5.
I was going to plug them in this week's episode because auto parts are related to the episode. I was going to give Soon Parts integrated advertising. People weren't even going to know it hit them. And we could have charged them double for this, but you're telling me they're gone.
Yeah. We had 6 followers, and now we're down to 5. And I was like, who left? Is it one of you guys? Is it one of your significant others? No, it's Soon Parts.
Gone too soon.
But we're so desperate, I think we might still keep them on in some way. Maybe we can get them back, like a jilted lover. Come back, baby. Come back soon, Parts.
Like an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm. And they found us on Facebook at Making Fun of MacGyver. We're also on Twitter at Fun of Mac. Just search for Making Fun of MacGyver on Twitter or Facebook. And please reach out to us. Chat us up. And if you want to come on the show at some point, we'll bring you on, and you can bring us your MacGyver expertise. And speaking of MacGyver expertise, we're also going to uncharted territory here. We've got co-host Spawn stepping to the mic for the first time. And Mike, why don't you make the introduction?
So I have here a very uninterested and now totally not paying attention 8-year-old. This is my oldest daughter, Abby. And when I told her that I needed to watch this episode the other day so that I could take notes, she said, I want to watch it with you. And I think that her heart was in the right place when we started, but then somehow she was stuck in 48 minutes of Hellfire disaster. So, Abby, come on up to the microphone and say hi.
Hi.
Hey, Abby.
Hi.
My new fellow MacGyverite.
So MacGyverite. That would be somebody that likes MacGyver, like Sam and Jeff and myself. We like MacGyver. So
yes,
liked is it what tense are we using?
I'm glad you didn't say love. I like it.
Okay,
Abby, what did you think of the episode? What do you think of MacGyver?
I don't know.
So, do you know how to rate something on a scale of 1 to 10? Like 1 if you don't like it, 10 if you like it. Do you know how that works?
Yeah.
How would you rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10?
2.
A 2?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really going to set some expectations for this episode.
It's okay, buddy. This is like our 9th one of these, and there have been some episodes that legitimately we have rated a 2. So you may not be wrong by the time this is all said and done with.
Voice of 8-year-olds across America. They've spoken.
Abby, how does 22 episodes of this show for 7 straight years sound? You want to jump in on that?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. You gave it some thought, though.
I appreciate that you gave at least one episode of MacGyver and 48 minutes of your life to me that you will never, ever get back.
I don't think it's a fully informed decision until she watches Trumbo's World. So maybe... Abby, do you like ants? Do you like ants that make noise, screechy noises?
Yes.
Okay. I got the perfect episode for you.
When this is over, Abby, when I'm done with Sam and Jeff, you and I are going back to your room and we're going to watch Trumbo's World.
Do you know why I like screechy noises?
Why?
I like screechy noises because one time I blew up a balloon and then I pinched it and it made a squirrely noise and I thought it was really funny.
I actually think there might be a balloon over by the microwave. Would you like to further drive away the 12 listeners we have and give us a go? That's the toaster oven, buddy. The microwave's over here.
And let's see which one was the more realistic ant sound. Let's compare.
Or actually, this reminds me of something MacGyver related. They dumped the kid sidekick bit. After a few episodes,
and we took it on here in episode 8.
Yeah, I'm seeing why they got rid of the kid sidekicks.
These kid actors, we can't find the balloon.
Challenge to get some work done.
I mean, we're all familiar with the movie Dumb and Dumber. Yes. We'll just insert the most annoying sound in the world right here, right now.
All right, moving on.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. Okay, Abby, thank you for your involvement in this particular episode. You have now skewed the listener demographic to younger. So, cool. Thanks, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, 8-year-old kid.
So that's how old, like, Jana and the Burmese slave kid are.
And they equally speak perfect English.
Yeah, but fortunately yours is not like a street thief or, well, a Burmese slave.
At least half of that is probably true.
Gentlemen, let me take you back to Sunday, November 24, 1985. We're just 4 days away from Thanksgiving. The number one movie in the country is something called King Solomon's Mines. And this blew my mind because I thought I would have known any number one movie from 1985 when I'm a 13, 14, whatever I am. And no, King Solomon's Mines, an action-adventure film, the fourth of 5 film adaptations of the 1885 novel of the same name. It starred Richard Chamberlain, Sharon Stone, Herbert Lom, and John Rhys-Davies. It was a light comedic take, deliberately referring to and parodying Indiana Jones. I watched the trailer. I had never seen that before in my life.
The greatest legend of all time.
It is not a fantasy, Mr. Quatermain.
About the greatest treasure known to man. Is about to be pursued by the boldest, most daring hero ever to seek the thrill of adventure. Richard Chamberlain is Alan Quatermain in King Solomon's Mines.
It was number one that week. Number one song, second week in a row is, what do you got, Mike? Let me hear it. Second week in a row.
We built this city.
Yeah.
We built this city on rock and roll.
And on ABC at 8 o'clock, it's MacGyver. Season 1, Episode 8, Hellfire. Now, the stage is set, and I will hand over the storytelling duties, the reins, if you will, to Mr. Mike Garland.
I'm sorry. I just changed my virtual background on this video thing, which is totally irrelevant to the audio, to a picture of Abby when she was not even one, and now there's a big angry baby face over my left shoulder. So let's see how long I can tolerate this. I really wish somehow this could translate in audio, but all right.
It was good timing. As soon as I threw it over to you, I look up and there's a giant baby face behind you. And I'm like, okay, is this a new thing? I was just going to keep rolling with it, but
it's something. I'm going to try something new. So, okay, look, there is no actual opening gambit to the episode. But we do start with MacGyver coming in a helicopter. We see it flying over a stream, and he's talking about going into the wilderness, searching for dreams. But he says the problem is sometimes that dreams can become a living nightmare. And the helicopter lands, and we aren't 2 minutes into the episode, and a lady named Laura runs up and yells, MacGyver!
Yeah.
Is this the first ever episode where before anybody even speaks, we hear his name? I know there's voiceover, but before anybody in the show even speaks a word, the first word of the show is MacGyver.
And this has been my thing. This is what I brought to this show, is that when I first started watching MacGyver, which is only 3 years ago, I couldn't help but notice everyone is always using his name constantly, but especially the first season. And then what I noticed in this episode is that he kind of rarely says their names back, you know? So this woman comes up to him, MacGyver, so good to see you, MacGyver. He doesn't even say her name. He doesn't say good to see you. I think her name is Mary, right?
Laura.
But yeah, it's just. But then we do hear a lot of Bills and some other throughout the episode, actually. But yeah, they start right away with MacGyvers.
So Laura and MacGyver get together, and there's pleasantries exchanged, which kind of culminates in MacGyver basically saying she's sexy. And I'm thinking, okay, this is an interesting start to this relationship. Where are we going here? You're wondering who Laura is. Is she an old flame? What's the core of their relationship?
Oh, I miss you, MacGyver. Oh, elegant as ever.
As beautiful as ever. And oh, so sexy. How did Bill ever see you before I did?
Oh, just lucky, I guess.
And MacGyver goes on to ultimately ask about this project that Laura's working on with a fellow named Bill and Pete, and it's this oil well, this derrick, and they're drilling for oil, and they think that they're going to find what they're looking for because they've hit a gas pocket, and everybody starts to get really, really happy about it. So they don't really say where they're at, like Montana, Wyoming, whatever. It's just this nondescript wilderness setting, but they're looking for oil, and it looks like they found it because they're all really happy and they're starting to hug. And this is when Bill comes over to hug Mac, and they reminisce a little bit, and Bill introduces MacGyver to Pete. So we meet Pete and Bill and Laura, and I believe these four are the only four characters in the entire episode, right?
Definitely. And regarding Bill and Laura's relationship with MacGyver, the three of them definitely have had sex before. You're talking because when he was like,
at the same time?
Oh yeah, definitely. He's like, oh, she's sexy. I'm like, oh man, these sweaty 80s guys.
He MacGyvered that.
Oh yeah, does MacGyver.
With duct tape.
It's just a weird thing to say to a woman who comes up in like a bomber jacket and a baseball cap. Like, right. I mean, this is someone who's obviously working, and MacGyver is getting he's getting MacGyver.
Right. Well, he's horn dogging it up because he's frustrated that last episode he couldn't get some of that waitress action. He had to patch that relationship up. He's like, where's my babe this episode? So now he's out there in Montana or wherever, and you've got to imagine the hormones coursing through his body. How's Abby doing, by the way? Is she within a good distance away from this show at this point?
She has put her headphones on and is watching something on her Kindle.
We went family friendly to NC-17 pretty quick.
She's right there, though. Let me do that right there.
But yeah.
But so you've got this dynamic, this relationship of Bill, Laura, Mac, and Pete. And after the introductions, Pete ultimately walks off because he's cleaning up. You know, they had hit this air pocket, and I guess there was maybe some water that was spewing out as well. And we're in the office now, and Bill and Pete are looking at a map, more map stuff. They're talking about all the different scenarios and how and why they think they've actually struck oil. And MacGyver's off in the corner juggling. Laura turns a light on, but it sizzles out, and they realize they've blown a fuse. And Mac goes over to the fuse box, and he finds that is indeed the issue, that the fuse is burnt out. Now, he's trying to do the easy, normal thing, like, hey, let me help you, change the fuse? Do you have a spare? But she says they don't have any, no supplies for a little while. So he opens a stick of chewing gum, chews on the gum, but he's ultimately using the wrapper as a workaround for this fuse because in theory, the composition of the gum wrapper is going to help bridge the fuse and bring it back to life. Jeff?
Does it MacGyver?
Yes, absolutely it does. So this is, gum wrappers have been the same for a very long time. They're paper pressed with aluminum, and you can just wrap it and bypass the fuse. But it's important to remember the fuse is there to protect the electrical equipment in the house. It burns out if there's too much load on it, so it's not really safe to be doing that. But according to Waste Management Incorporated, which might be the person who picks up your trash, because they pick up like everyone's trash everywhere, people in World War II would peel the aluminum off the back of the gum wrapper to collect for the war effort. So lots of uses for this little bits of aluminum. In this case, it does MacGyver.
So anyways, Mac and Laura, they're still talking, and they're reminiscing now about a time Bill got hurt fighting fires, and Bill ended up in the burn ward due to his injuries. And Laura said that ultimately Bill was given a choice, hell fighting or us. And she says that all their money now is tied up in this derrick and what they're doing.
And this is probably my first issue with this episode. She throws around the word hell fighting or hellfire like I'm supposed to know what that is. Had you guys ever heard of this phrase?
I had not.
Okay.
I'm familiar with smoke jumpers.
Well, I'd heard of wildcatting because, believe it or not, just south of me in Fresno is Bakersfield, and Kern County is the second highest oil-producing county in the entire country. So what they're doing is what people actually do. Like, it's called wildcatting. They go out there and they look for these tiny little pockets. They drill these wells. So that part's real, but I'd never heard of the hellfighting part. I mean, it makes sense when you see where there's oil on fire.
And explaining what it does, but they never get into the detail here on the front end, and then you kind of, I guess, piece it together as the episode plays out, but we'll get to that. So Bill and Pete they're certain they've struck oil, and they're certain they're going to be rich after they've looked at all this, the mapping and whatnot. And Laura then chimes in with kind of her theory on, well, this is what's going to happen if it doesn't work.
If this doesn't work out, Bill will go back to hell fighting. And
we go back outside. Bill and Laura, they're celebrating, they're dancing, and you can tell everybody's really happy that they're certain they've found oil, that they're going to be rich. MacGyver's laughing, and the wind is blowing. It's like there's a storm coming in or something. The wind is blowing. These lights are kind of bouncing back and forth that are kind of strung up and illuminating the area. But now one of the light bulbs hits something, and the light bulb blows, and this spark catches the derrick on fire, and there's a collapse of things, and Pete is stuck under the pipes. And what a horrible bump Pete takes here to like get stuck under the pipes. I mean, he was down, and these pipes come down in slow motion, whatever. Total 80s. Like, you didn't have the special effects per se. You had to actually trap a real life human under these real life things to make it happen. So I don't know. You look at me skeptically.
Well, no, that's because the show has to get him out of the way so MacGyver and Bill can have their throwback conversations and reminisce about old times. So it's purely like, it's like Pete's just got to go. He's the third wheel. He's in the way.
He's the Charlie of this particular episode.
Yeah, but less useless.
Untimely death.
I mean, apparently he's quite useful and then gets injured by accident and is even still fighting when he's got a broken leg. So I also want to point out here, like, there aren't that many MacGyvering moments in this, but the central premise of it is one giant MacGyver. So Mike just mentioned that the geyser is now exploded into flame. I have information about how all that happens and whether or not what they do will work, but I'm going to save that until all the way at the end.
So you get to, ultimately Pete and Laura realizing they are basically screwed. The derrick has blown up, the office has blown up, and that's where we cut from Act 1 into Act 2. So a lot of drama, a lot of buildup here in Act 1 as we transition to Act 2. And that, Jeff, you mentioned that Pete has the broken leg. That's where they actually confirm in the episode that Pete's got the broken leg, and Mac kind of starts to explain to him how it can be fixed. And he mentions, I believe, says queries law, and he goes into this really long, drawn-out explanation, which really is just a distraction to jerk Pete's leg back into some semblance of place so that he can have a less painful broken leg.
Of course, we're going to have to give it a pretty good yank straighten it, and splint on it.
Well, what are you waiting for, Doc? Let's do it.
Oh, I was just wondering.
You have any doubt you can do it?
Oh, no, that's no problem. It has to do with Curie's law.
Curie's what? Curie's law?
Yeah. You know, the one that says the magnetic susceptibility of a paramagnetic substance is inversely proportional to the absolute temperature. You know.
Magnetic susceptibility to...
On the other hand, don't think about it.
Okay, I'm glad you explained that, because I looked up this Curie's law, too. I had no idea what it was. All it means is that when something's really hot, it's less magnetic. And I could not understand for the life of me what that was relevant to what he's doing. But you're telling me he was distracting him to jerk him to reset the leg.
Yeah.
Okay.
To jerk his leg.
Well, okay. Well, that's what Curie's law is. Things are less magnetic when they're hot.
Okay. So, you've got a guy with a broken leg who's maybe now less in pain because if something was dislocated or there was a compound fracture that things have shifted. Whatever. I don't envy the position Pete was in. It more than likely hurt. But MacGyver has fixed it for the moment. He's MacGyvered his leg, if you will, and they've fashioned a crutch out of a stick, and now Pete is hobbling around like Tiny Tim throughout the rest of the episode. Laura and Bill, they've made this promise that they're not going to hell fight anymore as they're going back and forth. I mean, Mac learns from Bill that they don't have time to wait for the fire to be put out, because, no one's coming for a while, and MacGyver ultimately says, well, we can do it ourselves, and that's where Pete says, hey, there's an old mine where there's dynamite, and this is where, forgive me, I got out of order here, this is where Laura and Bill ultimately say, okay, well, we weren't going to do that anymore, and Mac ultimately says, I'll do it myself, and Bill can back me up. So MacGyver's trying to take the lead, to take the pressure off Bill, off this promise that he had made to Laura, and almost like in the previous episode, where you had the troubled Vietnam guy at the bar that couldn't overcome some of his fears from past life experiences. You have Bill here now who had a burn and a bad incident, and we learn later that there was some death that came out of this fire, and that's why they had their issues. So Mac's trying to take the lead, and Bill's going to be the backup.
Yeah, once again, MacGyver showing not only is he your man for a physical jam, mental and emotional trauma he can do just as well as he's, getting you out of the physical jam. He's amazing.
And I think one of the elements that makes this episode stand out a little bit more from the others, it's his really competent in its execution, and they do some pretty cool, like, horror and suspense style stuff that I thought did a pretty good job of building up, like, the stakes and the drama in an authentic way more than the sometimes, like, cheesy and forced way.
Well, and I know you guys gave me crap for watching ahead, but when I told you about this episode, I'm like, it's kind of really different than any of the others that we've seen so far, just because I think the pace, the fact that it was essentially one closed set, there wasn't all these other locations, you just had 4 characters, there wasn't a lot of side action, it was all about this one particular challenge or task or whatever. So they know that this mine that they're looking for is like 40 or 50 miles away, and they have to get in this old truck and drive through the mountains and over the hills and the potholes. And it's not so much going from the camp where the fire is to the mine. The problem is going to be driving that same road back once they find the TNT. So they hop in the truck and they're off. And there was like a little Western music playing here at this point as they're driving off. It was kind of odd. It wasn't, I don't know if it was like Western themed MacGyver, but all of a sudden they drop in some Old West themed music as they're driving off.
Well, wildcatting's also really common in like West Texas and places like that. So maybe that's what they were going for, the like West Texas aesthetic.
So they get to the shed where the dynamite is. Bill steps in, but his first step, his shoe goes through the floor. And that's when you realize that, not only is the dynamite unstable, but this entire building is. And they then kind of double back and try again. MacGyver rigs some planks across the floor and they walk in. But what I don't get is like he rigged the planks so that they could start walking in, but then there weren't more planks. So you still had that same problem of creaky planks and people stepping on the planks and whatever, but they made it work.
And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, so it's really dumb that he didn't make a longer stick. I thought so too, but the guys don't fall through the boards right away. Like, there's a compounding series of problems that are about to happen for them before things go really sideways. So, they're standing on these really rickety boards.
They get over the rickety boards, they get in, and Max slowly opens up one of the boxes. He finds all this dry dynamite, but he thinks that a lot of the a lot of the nitroglycerin has leaked out.
Pure nitro. Stuff will go off if you sneeze.
Let's try not to sneeze.
He actually finds a pool of it under a bunch of sticks of dynamite. Now, I was always a big fan of Mythbusters. And then Adam Savage did another show called Savage Builds. And on one of the episodes, he showcased nitroglycerin and how extremely volatile it can be, and was showing old West ways of transporting it, and could hitting a bump make it blow. And that's kind of the gist of what they're doing here, is they're treating it like it's the most fragile thing in the world, that any little thing you do could make it go up, including sneezing.
Well, go ahead then. Why don't you do the honors of Does This MacGyver?
Does it MacGyver?
Tell us. You have the knowledge.
Based on the Savage Builds episode, the concept that they're trying to push does indeed MacGyver, in that this stuff is volatile enough that it will go kaboom pretty quickly.
I think he's a reputable source. They're pretty good on their science.
Yeah. So Mac gets a scoop of this nitro. He puts it on his knife, and he walks out. Like, you would think he was holding the most dangerous thing in the world that was about to explode the way he walked out, but he kind of flicks his knife, and the nitroglycerin hits a barrel, again, the top of the barrel in this case. And it was like they were thinking of you, Sam, like preemptively thinking of you with all these barrel placement.
Multiple barrels this first season. I know you guys are digging it so far. I'm not really digging it. I'm finding it a little silly. Quite silly. The amount of creaky shelves. I'm watching the first time you see the dynamite start to come down off the top shelf, and it's not really even coming down, but Bill reacts like, whoa, it almost came down there. It's like it just slightly leans down. Oh, geez, I got this. And then it just gets worse from there. I'm not enjoying the banter Bill and MacGyver have going back and forth, and it got more annoying as the show goes on, but I'll bring it up here because they've got this like ribbing, old high school jock kind of thing going on. Like they're kind of making fun of each other with every other phrase, and it just gets really old. And we're coming up on it. So, but I just say we've got probably the worst slow-mo of any MacGyver episode yet coming up.
This is real bad.
And that was hysterical.
Really bad.
And it was the perfect bridge between Acts 2 and 3. We're not quite there yet, but after MacGyver gets the explosion, he ultimately says, yes, this is unstable, but it should be perfectly fine for the fire. And they keep cutting back and forth between Bill and MacGyver talking about putting out the fire, and Pete and Laura talking about Bill putting out the fire. Now, Bill says it's a rush to put out fires. And I would imagine, I'm going to say it just so we can get the cool sound effect. Does it MacGyver? Sure. I bet it is a rush to put out fires. Kudos to all the firemen and women that run into these burning buildings. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. But yeah, I imagine it is a rush.
Trying to get another sponsorship there. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate the hell fighting. All our local volunteers do.
We got to get some of that fire department money. Is that what we're talking about? Got to get on a big fire department.
Firehouse subs.
I have a cousin.
The firehouse subs in my town closed. I'm so sad.
It's one in my town.
Well,
I have a cousin who's a New York City firefighter in some of the toughest neighborhoods in the city. And so, yeah, but hell fighting, I don't know if he could do that. I don't know if he would know what that is.
Well, we get back to the camp now, and Pete and Laura, they're prepping the grounds for Mac and Bill's return. And as Bill and Mac load out the dynamite, the boxes are starting to fall, and Bill's holding them with his head and shoulders. Sponsor opportunity. Mac leaves with like a couple of boxes outside already, so he goes back to help Bill and takes the case from him and basically forces Bill to take the case and get out. Do it for Laura's sake. Now MacGyver's holding them up. The building's starting to crack and creak, and you get this slow-mo. Here you go. What, you want to comment before I pay it off here, Jeff?
Yeah, the holding up of the shelves with the boxes that are clearly empty and that buffoonery. That's, Sam, you have a point. That's really bad. Really bad.
That was about 6-7 minutes of the show right there, where they really
there's
this guy who can handle anything.
There's a prolonged box handoff.
Yeah, it just seemed like something like 12-year-olds would struggle with in a shed, not these two guys.
And there was a shelf right under that. Like you could have just put them on another shelf.
So but yeah, let's hear that slow mo. Let's hear that explosion in slow mo.
Oh, and I sent you the sound. You're going to hear the explosion in slow mo. We're going to hear it right now. end of Act 2, that was ridiculous.
All right, well, let's take a minute to just wallow in the hideousness of that slow-mo, and let's have a time capsule commercial here.
The Lego system starts here with the curiosity of a preschooler and the big blocks of a Duplo building set. And as imaginations grow, so does the Lego system, because most every block fits every other block from every Duplo and Lego set we ever made. From preschool on up, our toys play on and on. Lego and Duplo building sets, the toys you grow up with.
I want my block back.
All right. Lego, strong in 85, maybe even stronger as a company in 2020. I don't remember the Duplo thing, but man, Lego's been around a long time, huh? Someone's few peers are billionaires with that stock.
Well, and if you guys, I played with Legos. I mean, I still do with the kids. They actually have some of the Duplo stuff, but we've built Lego sets. There's some, I can see them here across the room. And now you have these big Lego conventions where kids can go build, or they have the Lego brick artists. But one of the coolest things, not to get horribly off on a tangent here, but that's what we are good at, is that Netflix has that series of the toys that made us or the toys that built us, whatever it was. And I think Lego might have been one of the features, but that's a really cool series on Netflix to check out all the different pop culture toys and their histories. And
they've got theme parks. They've got Legolands. There's one in Orlando and at least one coming to upstate New York.
Nice.
Originally made in Denmark.
I learned that the phrase Lego actually means to play. So they told us one time when I worked a Lego event that you don't say Legos because you wouldn't say to plays. So Lego is the Denmarkish word for to play.
I got it right here. The Lego group began in the workshop of Ole Kirk Christensen, a carpenter from Billund, Denmark, who began making wooden toys in 1932. In 1934, his company name came to be called Lego, derived from the Danish phrase "leg godt," which means play well.
Okay, play well. So same premise. You wouldn't say play wells. So that was kind of their. So I said it a little wrong, but I was going down the right road there.
I'm gonna have to call the Lego people pretentious.
You mean like the Ohio State University?
No, that's proper.
Right.
Is this where we say that Jeff? Well, no, you didn't even go there. You're just
he went to Otterbein College. Is it now Otterbein University?
No, yeah, but I'm from Ohio. Okay. Yeah, it's a university now.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on at that place.
In Oberlin.
They charge insane amounts and will probably go out of business.
Wait, what town? It's Westerville?
Westerville. That is where Prohibition started.
Oh, neat.
You're welcome.
I've been there. And then I left. Okay, so we're back to the show. Thank God. Act 3 begins. Bill's giving MacGyver shit for what he did. He said,
"You are crazy. I mean, certifiable."
Yeah? What does that make you?
"You're crazy. You are crazy, man." But then Bill says, "Hey, let's get this fire and get all this stuff on the road." So they're now rigging a means to transport the nitroglycerin, springs, plywood, dirt. And this was, again, that Savage Builds premise of you have the flat platform to put your boxes, you have springs for a little give, and then they put the dirt underneath so that if there was any drippage, you wouldn't have that immediate impact with the liquids for any untimely explosions. But
which they skipped the construction of.
We had to have 6 minutes of box moving. Come on, man.
Cheaper to move boxes than it is to shovel dirt.
Now, they say that it's a 54-mile drive from where they got the dynamite back to the camp. And at the pace they were driving, how long would it take them to go 54 miles?
And a little bit of foreshadowing, which they like to do. I wanted to mention this, but when they were coming to the abandoned sheds, MacGyver says something. This feels like an E-ride at Disney. And I'm wondering if you guys know what that reference was. Did you hear that? Did you catch that?
I heard
They're bumping all around, and he says, this is like an E-ride at Disney.
And I don't know what an E-ride is.
Well, I'm here to tell you.
I don't know.
It was a type of admission ticket used at the Disneyland and Magic Kingdom theme parks before 1982, where it admitted the bearer to the newest, most advanced or popular rides and attractions. So Disneyland opens up in 55, And for the first however many years, 20 plus years, they're charging you by the ride per ticket. So if an A ride would be 10 cents, a B would be 35.
Okay.
And they finally got around to inventing an E in the late 50s, and that would cost the most. But when Six Flags comes along in the 70s, pay one price and get in, Disney changes that by the mid to late 70s, and the E-ticket is no longer referenced. But, people who know Disney history know an E-ticket was the best thing at Disney World or Disneyland.
What a ridiculous pricing scheme. I guess I know they invented the system, so it's not hard to imagine they tried something that didn't quite work as well as just general admission, but county fair level stuff.
I love Disney, and I have people at Disney, and sometimes they help me out, so I'm not going to go in depth, but you want to talk about pricing schemes? See, Disney.
Yeah.
Sponsorship opportunity.
Probably not based on that comment. No, I love my Disney, and if you hear this, I can't wait to come back when things are normal again. So they're rolling slow as molasses on this road, 54 miles they've got to go. And now we have some sort of comment about the status of the package. And, what MacGyver says here makes perfect sense.
It's okay. I'm sure we'll know when it's not. Oh boy, you're real comfort.
Pete and Laura back at camp. They've got this pump hooked up. They've taken it over to this stream, this pond, whatever, and they're testing it out. She's explaining how the process has to be watered down so it doesn't get hot, so that the men on the front lines aren't burning, how everything doesn't explode. And Mac and Bill are still coming in, slow go, and they've stalled out after crossing a stream. And you think, okay, they went too deep in the water. That was my first thought, and that's why I said they've stalled out crossing the stream. But ultimately what you have, and it gives MacGyver an opportunity to MacGyver something else, but it doesn't seem like the proper payoff for the fact that they did just go through a stream. They went through a stream, the truck stalls out, but it stalls out because the linkage spring breaks, and MacGyver gets this ballpoint pen to rig the engine so that the spring from the pen is the new linkage spring.
So I'm going to recruit you, car guy Mike, to help me with this Does It MacGyver setup.
Does it MacGyver?
So the linkage spring is in an engine. It would close the throttle body in a carbureted engine, and this is how you control the engine with the accelerator pedal. So what he got from that pen, I looked up a company that sells old ballpoint pen springs, and in this case, they were selling for advertising pens from the 50s to 80s. So the most common possible kind of pen spring that you could have in this ballpoint pen. And all that is music wire used for things like springs, cheese slicers, fishing lures, making jewelry, and carving tools. It's notable because it's very pliable, but it is not very springy, which is the critical part that the linkage spring needs to be. And you can see that when he just stretches it out and it doesn't spring back. So this would not MacGyver.
Do you think Soon Parts uses these for linkage spring opportunities?
I don't think anything about Soon Parts because they left. No sponsorship opportunity. I have it in my notes. It says sponsorship Spoon Parts.
You're going to call them? You're going to be like, hey, I'm selling ads for this six person listening podcast that we have?
They bailed on the Facebook page, so now they're out. So don't bother calling them back. I fired them.
Back.
No, that's probably another number one a few years from now. I don't know, Ohio Players or whatever.
But you probably know from your experience that is not going to work.
Well, and how many times when we were younger did we take a ballpoint pen and you screw the tip off and you pull the damn spring out?
11 times.
11 times Sam did. Now, he's been a kid his entire life. He's just an older kid now. But yeah, I mean, we all did that, and clearly the spring is useless. So he uses it. He does get the truck going again, and they're off and running. And I like what I wrote here. They cut to one of the boxes that is leaking kaboom juice. There you go. We're going to call it kaboom juice. That'll be a new power drink that the Pepsi company creates here sometime soon. But kaboom juice is leaking out of the box as they meander down a road. And now they're going down a hill, and there's these odd explosions, but the brakes have blown out. And I have never seen brakes blow out like this. And by the way, when they're going down this hill, there's a wide shot. You can clearly see like a highway in the background and tractor trailers driving by. So wherever they were shooting, I-5 was close by, apparently.
Well, if the answer is wherever they're shooting is always Southern California. That's going to be the answer to like 99% of this. But doesn't the kaboom juice hit the brake? Isn't that what blows the brake out?
I don't know. I didn't put two and two together there. I mean, it would have had to have gone down through the dust and maybe down. And it's not true they'd shoot in Vancouver eventually. So it's not always Southern California.
Touche.
Yeah. So, I'll save this for my wrap up, but just a lot of like wacky natural disasters kind of fueling the suspense of this episode. Oh no, now the brakes are out. Like, okay, but all right.
We need 10 more minutes.
Okay, but can I all right, just get to the brakes go out, car goes out of control.
They crash into a pond.
No, before that. What's her name?
Laura.
Laura kind of like runs out in front of
I saw that. Like, is she going to stop the truck? Is she going to be like? I don't know. I mean, who
Barbara
was
Spencer? Who took the bullet?
She did, and then Mac yelled at her for getting shot. Laura, you idiot! How dare you stop this truck that would have blown up if you didn't stop it? No, was there a superhero, Jeff? You're into like the comic book guys that are in the movies. Was there some superhero that like stopped a vehicle with their fist?
I mean,
that's like a Superman thing.
Superman, Hulk, that other guy that looks like a big stone block.
Sure, I'm sure that's happened many times in a superhero movie. That and much more.
Whatever. So Laura's running out like she's going to stop this runaway truck. But anyways, truck crashes into the pond. There's no kaboom. And actually, if Abby was paying attention, this is where she could also chime back in. But her exact words were, "They're going to curse-plode if they don't stop." Remember when you said curse-plode? Yeah, she acknowledges. Yes.
Fact check. True.
I like curse-plode.
So wait a second. Are you telling me your 8-year-old daughter was still invested in this show like 40 minutes into it?
She was there.
Yeah.
I mean,
did she have a tablet in her hands or?
At the time, no. We were snuggled up in her little Papasan chair watching MacGyver.
But Mike, you don't understand. This is going to be important when me and Sam get to our ratings, and I'm going to call the suspense effective, and he's going to say that it wasn't. We're going to find out what the 8-year-old was. The 8-year-old still into the suspense?
She watched the whole darn episode, guys. Now, maybe there was some sort of loyalty or commitment or fear of me that kept her there, but regardless, she stayed till the end.
Did you have a fist raised above her head the whole time for the 40 minutes?
I did not. Was she willing? Yes. And let's just leave it at that. So that's the end of Act 3. Curse-plode. They didn't curse-plode. End of Act 3. So
and again, with this episode, there's no international duties for MacGyver. It's just, oh no, bad luck. Good thing I'm here to help you save your fortune.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So we start Act 4 with a cutaway shot of the oil fire, and Mac and Bill are carrying the boxes of nitro from the truck, and they've carefully set everything down on the ground, not too far away from the fire, and we get this explanation of how they're going to put out the fire.
All right, Billy boy. You tell me, how do we put that thing out?
Well, last time I used a heat-proof vehicle. Sort of a tank with an extensor arm on it. It was computer-controlled with a directional mechanism for fine-tuning. This time, I think it's going to be more like the old days. Prayers and guts!
Wait a minute.
Mac and Bill are going back and forth on how to put the fire out. Mac thinks he needs a long pole. And then I love his comment of, gonna need some stuff.
I guess I'm gonna have to entertain a couple of theories a few of my buddies came up with a while ago. Archimedes and Euclid, you may have heard of them. But we're definitely gonna need some stuff.
And he starts to explain about all the stuff. I mean, isn't that the epitome of every MacGyverism? I need some stuff. So he gets some stuff.
So have you figured out what he's about to do at this point?
At this point, no, I hadn't. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? So he mentions this refrigerator that he can use as a heat shield. And we saw in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull that you get in the refrigerator and it protects you from the nuclear blast. So you've got that. He finds a Jeep that is there and also some pipes to roll it on. So he's built now essentially a fire shield and a transportation mechanism with these three items, the Jeep, the refrigerator, and these pipes. And, of course, they've got the dynamite, which they're trying to work towards the shaft of the derrick, wherever the source of the flame is coming from. Now, they are just MacGyvering the crap out of this entire thing here with regards to how they're putting it together and the teamwork that's doing it. In the meanwhile, you've got Laura off in the corner milking the dynamite into a thermos. Like she's getting it into that Coleman there so that they can blow things up here in short time. And you've got broken-legged Pete hopping around helping Mac with the fridge, and Bill is skipping rocks off to the side or something. He's having that flashback moment, and he totally wasn't involved. But Laura says, soup's on. She's got everything situated. And MacGyver goes over and talks to Bill, and Bill tries to explain here why this is so hard for him. Bill dismisses Laura and actually punches Mac. They're fighting. You've got this. You talk about the high school rivalry, no, I can do it. No, you can do it. This isn't 24 and Jack Bauer where Jack is the only man in the world that can only always do something. Like Mac is trying to do this for Laura and Bill and Pete, but Bill says, no, I'm not going to risk you as a friend.
You can't handle it by yourself. Not in there.
Bill!
I think that's my choice, son.
No! And you know why.
That wasn't your fault. By God, 3 months in a burn ward. I think that's enough punishment, don't you?
For 3 lives. The guys on my crew, man, they bought it. They all bought it. They're dead, Mac.
Because he remembers how everybody else died the last time he had this failed mission, and so now they're fighting. They're tumbling around. It's the most ridiculous fight ever.
Yeah, it's about 15 seconds of these two fight. I could not believe this went on so long because MacGyver, of course, he does finish it with the ouch, my hand hurts, but they're just wrestling in the mud. It's just so juvenile and immature. It was out of character for him and makes no sense when you got much bigger fish to fry. For the love of God, these people are hell fighting. They've got hell fighting on the menu. No time for legitimate regular fighting. This was really dumb. This was quite the low point.
The word you're looking for, Sam, is hot. What they were doing was hot, and it was just foreplay. You look at it through that lens, this all makes sense.
Okay. Well, they've made up now. Laura breaks up the fight, and they've all made up, and they're good. And oh, by the way, they're all in overalls now because they're pushing the Jeep towards the fire, and Laura is hosing everyone down. Keep it cool. The temperature continues to rise, and they're using this Jeep as their transportation, using the refrigerator as the fire shield. They've got the nitro now on a pulley system in the thermos, and she continues to hose them down. They're testing the hitch release because they're doing something that involves essentially fishing this thermos out there, and then they're going to drop it down into the shaft. And you get the whole notion of it's too hot. We need more water pressure from Pete. So he turns up the pressure, and Mac continues to fish out the canister towards the shaft. And, of course, it gets stuck. So Mac has to go out from behind the heat shield and fix it. This goes back to the Trumbo's World episode where he now has to run out in the ant suit and take the ant suit off so that he can save Trumbo's little village. So similar concept here. He runs from out behind the heat shield and loosens the jacket, and Laura's hosing him down. He's really selling the hotness of the fire here as they keep moving the canister closer and closer. Tensions are high. Two friends. They were just fighting moments ago, and now they're all working together to save the well.
And what's happening here is it's so hot, they're just spraying them down with water to keep them cool. That's all. I mean,
and that's
yeah.
real.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
That's a real thing. Yeah.
And I mean, and Nelly had this a few years ago, right? It was so hot in here that they had to take off all their clothes.
Oof.
I mean, it's pressurized gas shooting out of the earth on fire, and it's incredibly hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes, Nelly is correct.
I mean,
it is, yeah. Well, I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that might be where it gets his name from.
Hellfighting?
Wait, Nelly?
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
Where Nelly did get his name from.
Well,
Hellfighting.
On the next episode of Making Fun of MacGyver. So they think they've got the canister where they need it to be. They run away. They drop it, and it explodes. And just like that, the fire is out, and they're celebrating. And MacGyver says, hey, what's next? And Laura and Bill say that since they know that there's oil there, they got to build a new derrick.
Well, according to IMDb, there's a huge problem that MacGyver, and I noticed this, but MacGyver and his friend are soaking wet while planting explosives. It's 15 seconds. Even as they're running away from it, you see that they're dry. And then when they're sitting around, they're also pretty dry. IMDb also points out that after they successfully put out the fire, they inexplicably forget something very important. While the fire was out, the source of the fire, presumably natural gas, would have still been escaping through the hole in the ground. They act as if this wasn't happening. A responsible oil worker would always cap the well as soon as it's safe to do so. I don't know if that's legit or not, but
does it MacGyver?
Well, let's talk about that, because I did read an extensive article about how you fight on fire oil wells out of curiosity to see how they would do it. And I'm not going to read from all of it, but it gets to the juicy part, like a page or two in. And it says something about on an oil well, it might take as much as 1 million gallons of water on site to douse all the people and all the equipment to keep things going. And that actually, normally, it is usually left to burn like that to minimize ground pollution and burn off any poisonous gases. So the part where they just leave it to burn is a real thing that people do. And then the article helpfully says, the old days of using explosives to snuff out the fire are generally gone. So, according to this reputable site, they are saying this is absolutely something that would MacGyver. It's like she says, you blow it up, it snuffs out the fire, and then you plug the hole that is the gas shooting out of the earth. And that used to be how they did it, and it's incredibly dangerous.
You watch a lot of movies, Jeff. Deepwater Horizon. That had, Marky Mark was in it, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
And that was the big Gulf oil explosion, right? Didn't they let some things burn there for a while, too?
Well, that's a little different because, like, the part they couldn't get to was way, 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 way underwater.
Okay.
But like in situations like this, actually a better analogy is like
There Will Be Blood.
The 91 invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. So when Iraq retreated, they set all the oil derricks on fire, and you might recall all the smoky skies from that. So, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of oil and gases and other things down there. So we think about things burning out or the tank running empty, and it could burn for years like that. So all the individual parts, like the heat shield and getting the thing out there and the explosion, like all of that is real, you know?
And I'll close this part by saying that near where I am in Pennsylvania, there's a town called Centralia. It's maybe an hour and a half north of me, and there was an underground mine, and at some point, somehow, someone sparked a fire, and the town is essentially under fire underground and has been perpetually for years. Like, essentially no one lives there anymore. The town got sort of deleted off the map, but it's still this tourist spot because you can see smoke coming out. So, I mean, sometimes you just can't put the fire out. But ultimately, they get the fire out, all of that jazz, and they realize they need to rebuild, but they're looking for some help, and MacGyver basically volunteers to stay and help work for his friends as they rebuild and make their millions.
That'd be great if the next 2 episodes of the show is just him helping on the ranch. Like, nothing bad happens. He's just 48 minutes of him helping. Everything's fine. Continuity.
It's like an episode of Little House on the Prairie at that point.
He's got some emotional work to do on his buddy Bill, who's clearly carrying some scars, literal and metaphorical.
From IMDb, the plot of this episode is lifted because, they like to lift a lot in the first season. From the 1953 French film The Wages of Fear, directed by H.G. Clouseau. The film was itself remade in 1977 as Sorcerer, directed by William Friedkin. William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist. And my cousin has highly recommended this movie, Sorcerer, from 77, as like an underground sleeper kind of great movie. But I'm stunned to hear that it could have anything to do with hell fighting, putting out oil fires. But,
well, now you have to almost certainly have to go find it, don't you?
Yeah. You guys ready to rate this?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Name's MacGyver.
Oh, by the way, you know why MacGyver's staying.
Laura.
And Bill.
What about Pete?
I told you, I already explained Pete's role in all this.
You see, Laura, Bill, and MacGyver all do like a group hug at the end, and then like Bill does kind of reach over and bring Pete into it. So all four of them do hug at the end.
Reach around for Pete?
Yeah, he gives him a reach around, basically. I'll go first because I did not enjoy this one. I don't want to say I need bad guys. I don't want to say I need high suspense. I like the idea of just seeing MacGyver's life and he winds up with a friend and something wacky happens. But halfway through the episode, I realized, there's nothing really driving this. Nothing's really pushing me. Okay, you know what's the big issue is here? Can he help his friends turn into millionaires? Like, okay, that's what's at stake here. Will his friends become millionaires or not? That's not that big a deal to me. No, and then, okay, maybe some emotional trauma for Bill, but we only find out about that later. If the fire just burns and they all just go into town, for a few days and do their thing in a Motel 6, they come back and everyone's safe and they're just going to live their lives. But what's the drama here? Will Bill and Laura become millionaires? I don't really care too much about that. The annoying banter between those two started to work the nerves. The fight was really dumb. It was kind of un-MacGyver, like to fight with your friend like if she doesn't jump in and start talking some sense, that just goes until someone is beaten to a bloody pulp, and then one person's having to put out the fire. I don't know. That was silly. And the slow-mo with the voice. I mean, the audio kept going while it was in a freeze frame for about 5 seconds there.
MacGyver.
So because of all that, I gave Trumbo's World a 2, but it's still like maybe my favorite episode. But I'm going to give this a 3 because it's not as sloppily made as Trumbo's World, but I would still enjoy Trumbo. I would not really want to watch this one again. To me, it's kind of forgettable, and there are some hiccups with the tech side, and then the creaky shed for 5 minutes is just a little. So I don't know. I just wasn't gripped by it. It's fine. I don't hate it, but it's below average for me.
Jeff?
Valid criticism. That's very valid criticism. I don't disagree entirely, but I think you're underrating how the execution plays out. I'm able to look past the cheese of it to see kind of something that's a little more competent and entertaining to me than a lot of what we've seen before. But it's not a standout. Good central premise and decent execution on the suspense, I thought, but average. A 5 mullet affair.
I told you guys going into this that I think it was different than any episode we've seen before. And do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Very different plot line, the way it all rolled out. It was almost like those movies where you get the one shot scene that lasts forever. And I know that there were a bunch of different cuts here, but I had that feel when I watched this. And usually that's a good thing in a movie because it means the actors, the producers, everybody did all the right things. I did not have that feeling here. I just felt like it was, maybe they were getting creative and it wasn't. I give it a 3. 3 mullets.
Oh. I thought he was previously telling us how good it was, but
I didn't say it was good.
Okay.
I said it was different.
Okay.
I think because I watch a lot of horror movies, I'm able to look past like some of the schlockiness of it, and I'm looking at the execution, and I don't know. I'm wrong. It sounds like.
No, it's all right. I mean, and now when you total this up, Sam, do we count Abby's 2 on here, or are we just going to keep our grades?
This would have an asterisk by it.
This one's rated 4 out of 10 mullets.
Yes, 4 mullets out of 10. Once again, we forget to tell people we're rating 1 out of 10, and it's mullets involved. So we'll get the hang of this eventually. 4 out of 10 mullets combined, and that's kind of on the lower side. But the Golden Triangle was a 4, the Heist was a 3, Trumbo's World a 2.
Man, that's a slog. I don't disagree with a 4. Like, I'm fine with that. It's fine. Whatever. It's not the standout. It's not.
No. But, I do like the change of pace. I think that you don't have international intrigue and, I got to go to some country to right the wrongs. But I still needed more than, man, if that fire just burns out of control, his friend will not become wealthy. I mean, okay, but no one's life is in danger until you decide to, risk your life for that money. So.
But if you realize the true story is about the love triangle that's going on in MacGyver rekindling his true love, all of a sudden the fire just becomes a metaphor. See, you missed the whole subtext of the whole episode. By the way, we had listener feedback from our email. Someone noticed I was mad at the space station in the last episode and wanted to know why I was mad at the space station. And I want to let everybody know, they know why.
Future segment coming up soon, one of these weeks. Once we can accumulate, we're going to get to some viewer mail. We're going to still call it viewer mail in tradition of the late night with Dave Letterman. But let's count up the MacGyver mentions. I like to do this. I like to see how many times someone says MacGyver each episode. Of course, the benchmark now, the landmark Trumbo's World with 25. The lowest we've ever had is 11 with the pilot. That's before the ABC exec said, "What are you doing only saying his name 11 times? We need at least twice that per episode." So, guys, how many times did someone... It's the first word spoken in this episode, but how many times did someone say MacGyver here?
there's a lot of protracted Pete and Laura only time that's going to cut into the overall number. I think that the one off the top is a misnomer. It's going to throw off your perception of it because it's so in your face right to start. You're ready for it. I'm going to go 17 MacGyver mentions.
I will go with 13. It felt slim this time around.
Yeah, there were a lot right in the beginning. As soon as he's off the helicopter, they're throwing it around left and right. But you guys actually split it. It's 15 MacGyver mentions here. So both you guys were in the ballpark.
Hi, close without going over, right?
I don't know. Is it a competition? If you guys want it to be a competition. I don't know who's winning this.
Is a competition.
Okay.
Oh, I have no idea.
But that's it. Let's wrap this one up. You guys feel good about it?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I enjoyed this episode, and I'm looking forward to doing the next one and continuing this trend of mediocre at best podcasting.
I think if the people at Soon Parts don't hear this episode and decide to come back, I don't know what would bring them back.
No, I don't want them.
Oh.
I don't want them.
Come on, Soon Parts. Soon Parts, Head and Shoulders.
Do not call us Soon Parts.
Disney.
Don't call us.
Let's just go right to
Firehouse
Disney.
Subs. I mean, Sam, you're close by. Drive up to the mouse and be like, look, dude, we need help.
Real talk, y'all. Real talk. If Disney comes calling with their money, I love Disney.
Oh, we all
You've
love
never
Disney.
heard me say a good thing about Disney and make sure they get my bank account number.
Dorsch. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to Making Fun of MacGyver. We're at Fun of Mac on Twitter and Making Fun of MacGyver on Facebook. For Jeff and Mike and Abby, special guest, I'm Sam. See you next time. Peace.